In 2007, Omid Nino Tahvili, the leader of a Persian organized crime group in Canada, walked out of prison in British Columbia while still in custody. Tahvili escaped a maximum security prison by wearing a janitor's uniform and bribing a guard to look the other way. On November 15, 2007, Mr. Tahvili managed to convince almost everyone that he was a member of the cleaning staff, just ending his shift. Without any effort, he passed under the watchful glass eyes of 100 security cameras at the North Fraser Pretrial Centre, where he'd been held for 27 months. Only one guard in the high-security prison in Port Coquitlam, just outside Vancouver, apparently knew that night who the man in the black cleaning outfit really was. Corrections Officer Edwin Ticne was in on the plan, willingly opening a series of locked doors to escort Mr. Tahvili outside, where he got in a car and drove off. It was the first time anyone has ever escaped from the prison, which was built in 2001 at a cost of $49 million. At 53, Mr. Tahvili is now one of Canada's most wanted fugitives. A stocky man with a distinctive smile, he could be mistaken for a reputable businessman running Platinum Touch, an auto shop in Richmond, BC. Yet his tattoos reveal a darker side, a cross, a fire spiral, and his children's faces inked on his body. Rumors suggested one tattoo was linked to a debt enforced by a triad, a detail mirroring the blend of truth and lies characterizing his post-1994 life in Canada. Convicted of kidnapping and assault in 2007, evidence revealed Tahvili's role as a Persian gang leader in BC, involved in narcotics trafficking. Despite years evading law enforcement, a misplaced Purolator package in 2005 exposed his criminal endeavors, marking the beginning of his downfall. This incident led to the unraveling of Tahvili's covert operations, previously undetected by police. Police suspected a lost Purolator shipment meant for Mr. Tahvili contained $200,000, though he initially claimed it held vital documents, later alleging it was $350,000 from a Toronto business sale. When Tahvili demanded to meet the involved Purolator employees, Senior District Manager Robert Candido refused. Tahvili hinted at union involvement, cryptically referring to Hell's Angels, Vietnamese, and Iranians. Candido eventually named a suspect, DL, who had abruptly departed to Vietnam. Subsequently, Tahvili's associates visited DL's brother-in-law, DT, intending to test drive a Mercedes listed for sale. During the test, an orchestrated stop led an Infiniti QX4 to block them, showcasing Tahvili's reach and the complex web of threats underpinning his operations. This episode highlighted the lengths to which Tahvili would go to retrieve the missing package, involving intimidation and leveraging criminal connections. Mr. Tahvili, armed, coerced DT into an SUV, warning him to reveal DL's and the missing package's whereabouts by midnight, threatening his family's safety. In an office, 3 men terrorized DT, threatening his wife and subjecting him to humiliating and painful acts, including simulating castration and running a razor down his back. They assaulted him, threatening further abuse. Tahvili then performed a deceitful act of compassion, kissing DT's hands before feigning a rescue attempt from the kidnappers. This orchestrated manipulation, as described by Judge Joyce, was likely a ploy to portray Tahvili alternately as a tormentor and a savior, embodying a manipulative bad guy good guy tactic. This incident underscored the extreme lengths Tahvili would go to assert control and instill fear, utilizing physical and psychological torment to retrieve information. After being released, DT was warned by his captors against police contact. Yet upon returning home and finding his wife with an RCMP officer, he was convinced to disclose the ordeal. This led to an undercover operation, including phone taps on Mr. Tahvili, culminating in his arrest at an airport. Facing kidnapping and assault charges, Tahvili escaped custody before sentencing. Accomplice Mr. Ticne was arrested for aiding the escape. Tahvili remains at large, with potential hideouts spanning Canada to Europe. In 1997, Mariah's shock incarceration facility inmate Victor Figueroa disappeared from the New York security compound without a trace. To this day, authorities have no official ruling as to what happened or where he went. It was during a routine phone call with his sister, Yvette Cruz, a few days before his alleged flight, that he had voiced unrest with his conditions, complaining of abuse from a particular guard and an overall feeling of angst. Then on February 6th, the 21-year-old Figueroa was declared missing and a massive manhunt was organized in pursuit of him. "There is a guard who keeps messing with me. Look, I have to let you go," Figueroa shared with his sister before disappearing entirely a few days later. She replied, "You know I love you. This is going to end in a few months. Please call me tomorrow." Following the realization of the inmate's absence, searchers examined the surrounding area and found footprints leading to a nearby abandoned mine shaft. They surmised that Figueroa had fled to the mine to avoid detection and had fallen to his death. Further pursuit was halted. Conditions in the mine were too dangerous for a thorough search to be performed. After officials failed to provide sufficient answers, Figueroa's family became restless in their drive to find out what happened to their loved one. However, authorities threatened to arrest the fugitive's sister if she took to the mines herself or tried to hire a private search party. "I was going crazy. He was my other half," she shared years later. She said she would try calling the jail and they would hang up on me. "No one would tell me anything." The family suspected foul play on the part of the law and prison officials, but nothing was ever confirmed. Some 25 years later, Victor Figueroa's disappearance remains a puzzling mystery. He is the only New York prisoner today to escape and not be found. What do you think? Do you think Victor managed to escape successfully, or did something else happen here? Raymond Abbott, an athletic former U.S. Army infantry soldier, liked to introduce himself as RoboCop, after the science fiction law enforcer who literally gets shot to pieces but remains unstoppable. Abbott put that name to the test when he tried a daring escape from a maximum security prison in Puerto Rico. It was a performance every bit as daredevil as any Hollywood superstars. In February 1992, the 31-year-old Abbott was arrested for smuggling weapons after an investigation by the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms. Abbott pleaded guilty and was sent to a maximum security penitentiary in Rio Piedras, Puerto Rico, where he awaited sentencing. But investigators say Abbott had no intention of staying in jail for long. They say he patiently planned an escape and worked long and hard to get physically fit, sometimes doing as many as 1,000 push-ups a day in his cell. He was in excellent physical condition, said Roberto Vizcarrando, senior criminal investigator at the U.S. Marshals. When the time came for his escape, Abbott dashed past a guard who had entered his cell for prisoner count and bolted out the door. By the time he made it to the prison's interior patio, the guards were hot on his trail. In a scene straight out of an action movie, bullets whizzed by as Abbott, who had swaddled himself in a blanket and mattress foam for protection, sprinted across the patio and jumped down on the barbed wire enclosure outside. The guards kept shooting at him, but Abbott escaped. His daredevil flight landed Abbott on the U.S. Marshals' most wanted list. He is now being hunted by officials for escaping the maximum security prison, smuggling guns, and threatening a federal officer while in prison. Those threats were directed against ATF agent Reinaldo Rodriguez, the man who arrested Abbott for smuggling weapons from Miami to gangs and drug cartels in Puerto Rico. The arrest didn't sit well with Abbott, who felt that, as leader of a powerful gang, he had been humiliated. So he vowed while he was in prison to get Rodriguez killed. He wanted to show that he had people on the streets to take care of him, Vizcarrando explained. But now that he was out of jail, Abbott decided to take matters into his own hands. A few days after his escape, Abbott's grandmother claimed he had called her and vowed that he would kill Rodriguez before he ever returned to jail. Abbott wasn't always a hardened criminal. Born in Miami on April 7, 1961, he was considered a good student as a child. But while he was still young, his mother divorced his father and went to Puerto Rico. It is thought that at this time, Abbott came into contact with gangs and stepped into the world of crime. Marshals say that he is articulate, likes to work out, and has an affinity for motorcycles and guns. He is extremely knowledgeable in weapons, well-versed in the use of high-powered firearms, and interested in motorbikes, said Vizcarrando. Abbott has other interests too. He was always surrounded with nice-looking females, said Vizcarrando. In fact, it was his passion for women that gave rise to rumors that he had died from AIDS. But the rumors have been dispelled. According to investigators, Abbott is thought to be alive and well, running an underworld weapons and prostitution smuggling ring. Vizcarrando said Abbott is believed to be living somewhere in the states bordering Mexico, where he does business with his extensive network of contacts in the illegal firearms markets south of the border. Abbott has been on the lam for 16 years. He is considered extremely violent and dangerous, and there is a $25,000 reward for any information that can lead to his arrest. He can sometimes be friendly, said Vizcarrando, but he cautioned he is always looking for trouble.